I'm Emily Mashak, and you are listening to Tuned Into NoCo, Town Square Media show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm talking today with Carley Clark, the foster parent recruiter for the Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth here in Northern Colorado about foster parent recruiting. So thank you for joining me today, Carley.
Emily, thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Of course. And before we get into the recruiting process, for those who are unfamiliar, what is SAFY?
So SAFY, like you said earlier, is Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth, but that's a big old mouthful, so we like to shorten it. And we are a nonprofit here in Northern Colorado and kind of the Denver metro area that serves youth and families who have experienced trauma and hardship. That, of course, can look a lot of different ways, but we have two main programs. The first is treatment foster care. And so that's what we'll talk about primarily today, where we are placing kiddos into safe homes so that they can do some healing and hopefully reunify with their family down the road. And then we also have a program called Family Preservation, where we do in-home work to support parents and caregivers in learning the skills that they need to parent a kiddo with trauma.
That is awesome. How did you find your way to the organization?
Yeah, I have been here for going on 6 years, which is about as long as we've actually existed in Northern Colorado. I went to school for social work at CSU. I'm a Colorado native, and once I graduated from the social work program, I really wanted to be working with families in their homes, doing treatment, and found this awesome startup agency that was willing to accept a newbie in the field, and they trained me up, and I've gotten to serve in both different programs and through a couple of different capacities. So it's been fun to see our little nonprofit evolve over time.
That is great. Well, congrats on the 6 years. What is the foster situation like in Northern Colorado? What is the need for these families?
Yeah, absolutely. So the state of Colorado as a whole, I believe in 2019 had over 5,500 kids in the foster care system, which is massive. And we have a couple of counties in Northern Colorado, of course, Larimer and Weld and the Denver metro area, right, that just are the need of foster homes outpaces the foster homes that are available at any given time. And so we have an exceptional need as well for families that would like to have teenagers and older adolescents in their home. Littles are babies and toddlers are somewhat easy to place. There's a lot of families who are feeling ready to parent that age group, but there are so many delightful and fun aspects about having older kids in your home. And so that is a huge need that we have in Northern Colorado.
You mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I want to dive a little deeper. I was looking on your website at the different services that SAFY offers, from adoption to therapeutic foster care, like you said, to family preservation, behavioral health, older youth services. Would you be able to break down what those services entail for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that trauma exists, right, for human beings in all sorts of communities, and that can look a lot of different ways. But part of treating trauma, right, can be really traditional modalities like outpatient therapy, where the child or the adult goes to therapy once a week and can kind of have a place to process through the hardships that they've experienced and build new skills related to healing. So that is kind of the outpatient perspective. And that trauma work is kind of incorporated into all of the other programs that we do. And so our goal as an agency is that whenever possible, kiddos are being raised in homes in the community, right? We know that a lot of youth who experience trauma end up in like hospital or residential settings. And while there's absolutely a place and a need for that, we want that to be short term because we think that healing really happens at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when possible, we do family preservation services, right? So, we work to keep a child in the home before they have to enter one of those higher levels of care. And we do that by really teaching parents and grandparents kind of the skills that are needed to navigate a child that has experienced trauma, because their needs look a lot different than maybe a neurotypical child. So whenever possible, we like to get in early and keep kids in their homes. But then we also have the treatment foster care program that is kind of a safety net to help kiddos return home if they do have to leave and find healing in a foster home, while maybe their biological family also does their own work around healing and preparing to parent again. So we kind of have a big old spectrum of ways that we can either keep kiddos at home or help them get back there as they navigate these kind of tough growing pains.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know a big part of SAFY is recruiting foster families. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that works and how has the pandemic affected this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our greatest need and our greatest resource in all of these programs is foster families. And so we are looking for safe adults, right, who have some time and energy and space to give to a kiddo who needs a safe place to land for a little while. So to be a foster parent at SAFY, we're looking for people to be over the age of 21, and to be open to learning new skills and just really learning with each different child that kind of enters their home. And so to become a foster parent, it starts with, of course, interest. So it's my really awesome, fun job to go out there and kind of drum up interest and talk about our programs. And then when we do find people who want to learn more and want to learn about this, they enter an application through the state of Colorado website, and that's really just where they enter a lot of demographic information about their home and their family setting. And then we start training. So we do about a 12-week training. It happens once per week. And for about 2 hours, we go over all the skills that are needed to understand child development and how trauma impacts the brain and what kind of skills parents might need during crisis and how they can build really strong relationships and how they can incorporate the biological family in this child's healing. So there's a ton of training that happens along with, your regular background checks and CPR, just all of the tools that we think are helpful in parenting kiddos. And then during that time, we also do what's called a home study. And so that's a series of interviews where we learn more about your home, your family, and what kind of kiddos might be a really great fit. Because we know that families come with all kinds of different skills and strengths. And some families are really great at parenting teenagers, some like littles. There's all kinds of kids out there that need homes. And so I think that there is all sorts of families can provide that, right? Whether it's single parents, families that already have their own youth. We're looking for anybody because we think that everybody has something to offer.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to say that there's not a perfect way to be a foster parent, but there's a million ways to be a good foster parent. And that's the same as parenting in general, I think. So that is kind of the process. It generally takes about 3 or 4 months to become a foster parent, to be certified. And then at that point, once you finish your training and your home study, we start to do the work on connecting the family to a child that we think could be a really good fit in their home, and getting that all coordinated and doing the visits each week to support both the child and the foster family, because we know that it takes a whole village to really support kiddos. So
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard you mention earlier, you said a single parent or two spouses. Who qualifies to be a foster parent? How does that work?
yeah, absolutely. So if you are over the age of 21 and you are willing to learn and grow in your parenting practices, we would love to have you. We have all kind of age ranges. We have foster grandparents, right, who are in their 60s and 70s even, that are still really willing and excited to take placements and to work with kiddos. So we have a whole age range. Like I said, we have single parents, single moms or dads who are looking to do this work, as well as couples. And we really pride ourselves on the diversity in our foster homes, right? So having same-sex couples, just a whole spectrum of human beings, because we know that the kids that are in care also represent a whole spectrum of human beings, and we think everybody has something to offer. So there are, we want to look into as well, like the financial state, and be able to ensure that a foster family has the resources from us and on their own that they might need to care for a child. But that is really kind of situation specific, and so we don't have hard and fast rules around that. The, of course, only other rule would be that families are willing and able to pass a background check and demonstrate that they're able to safely care for children.
Mm-hmm. I know that foster care is such a beautiful thing, but it can definitely be a difficult journey at times. What do you think are the biggest challenges when becoming a foster parent, and what should they prepare for, and how can they overcome these challenges?
Yeah, you spoke earlier to the fact that there's also a pandemic happening, which I think is like a whole new spin on what makes foster parenting challenging, right? We are in pretty unprecedented times, and we're learning every single day from our current foster families what makes it extra hard right now. So, I think the kind of the run of the mill normal times hardships look like bringing somebody new into your home, right? And just all of the logistical and scheduling changes that have to happen, because kids are busy with school and after school activities and daycare. There's so many moving parts. And so a lot of what we're doing from week to week is helping families kind of plan for those things and manage their schedules and manage all of these appointments. That's always been tricky, but especially with a pandemic, now that we have some kids who are doing school virtually, some who have a hybrid model, and some in person, that adds a lot of chaos. And so that is a big reason that we have seen, I think, people be more reluctant to foster at this time, right? Is not knowing, will I be solely a foster parent, or will I also be a foster parent and an educator for these online kiddos? And that is a new level of ask that we have not ever had before, where we are asking people to learn kind of the online education system as well. So that is kind of where a lot of our energy is focused right now, is how do we support foster parents in still having respite and still getting breaks while they're navigating these additional educational responsibilities. Which also makes me think about the fact that we do certify respite families as well. So we have a lot of folks who say, I really want to help kids in care, but I'm not ready to commit to having children 100% of the time in my home. And so to that, we have a program where we can certify folks just the same as we do for fostering, but they take respite placements only. So anywhere from an afternoon to 1 overnight to 2 overnights. And that just allows for our current foster parents to be able to take a break, have a night off and regroup, which, we know is so important for all parents. And so that's an amazing program as well that we're always looking for new families to participate in.
Now, we talked about the challenges of foster care, but we also know that it can have so many beautiful outcomes as well. In your 6 years at SAFY, can you tell me any personal stories about how you've seen it impact youth in Northern Colorado?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the coolest part of the job, right? The most fun.
Mm-hmm.
We have had 2 adoptions this year in our little community, and that is incredible. To see a child achieve permanency, right, which is the idea that they land in a family forever. And we just really believe that every child deserves that. I saw on average in Colorado, children who enter the foster care system are in the system for anywhere between 6 months to 3 years on average, which means that there are also kiddos who are spending a lot more time than that in care, which is a really, really heartbreaking thing to see. And so when we get to connect these kiddos to a forever family, that is like the most beautiful thing in the world. And to see other folks who have these open hearts for kids watch their families grow by bringing in new kiddos, it's just, it is so special. And I think the the moments of healing that children have in a foster home, they can be so tiny and so impactful, right? So like making a new friend or having a sleepover with, cousins in that new foster family. Those are like really normal childhood experiences that a lot of foster kids don't get to have. And so, to see them come home from those things with a huge smile, or to say, I'm going to call my foster mom when I need to feel safe and taken care of. Like those are really impactful things to see happen. And our foster parents are behind every one of those moments. So we just feel so lucky to share in that with them.
I know that every situation is different, but can you break down what it's like to foster a teenager versus someone younger?
I love that question. I think what makes teenagers easy and hard are like the two sides of the same coin, right? So teenagers can talk to you, they can tell you what they want and what they need, which is so important when we're talking about kids who have experienced trauma, right? Because things that might, we might not give a lot of thought to, like what meals we're planning or when we're going to pick kids up from school, right? Like a teenager might have a lot of input about how that impacts them and what they feel like they're needing. And so it's great to be able to hear that directly from them. But it can also feel challenging. Communication in any family can be hard, in any relationship, right? There can be breakdowns in communication. And so I think foster parents who are willing to have adolescents and teenagers being willing to practice all kinds of different communication skills and styles, and being, I think, able to coach a communication style in a child, right? So being able to say, what if you said it this way? Or, let's try again and see if we can make this conversation more successful. I think teenagers are really looking and really hungry for people who will engage in conversation. So that is the biggest area that we see really successful foster parents flourishing in, is their willingness to slow things down and have a whole conversation.
That is great to hear. What would you say to a person or a family who is interested in fostering but is still on the fence as to whether they can really take that on?
What I love about our agency and our model of training and preparing a foster home is that we are in it for the long haul, right? Like we want our placements to be really successful. And so I would say a lot of families feel like they have to have it all figured out. They have to be 100% ready before they take the plunge. And what I have learned about parenting of any sort is that rarely do you feel 100% ready for what's in front of you, right? And so, starting the training, showing up, like there's nothing, these things don't come at a cost, right? Besides like little background checks and things like that. But to attend training, to have home studies, and to start conversations is totally free. And we want to move at a pace that is going to be successful for your family. So even starting out with respiting, like just getting your toes wet, I think is the thing that oftentimes shows families that they're more prepared than they believe they are. And we could talk about this all day long, as I'm showing right now. So we love to have people call and ask questions and share kind of what their reservations are, and where we can talk through that. Absolutely.
Right. Where should people go if they do have questions?
Yeah, so they can go onto our website at safy.org. There is a big button up in the top right-hand corner where they can ask questions or they can reach out for more information. And then they can also, reach out to us. We're on Facebook. We're pretty active there. We're really ramping up our social media during this time of COVID. And so reaching out to us on those platforms as well works great.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Carley. It's a great program, and it was so awesome to learn about this.
Thank you for the time.
Again, that was Carley Clark, the foster parent recruiter for Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth, or SAFY, here in Northern Colorado. To learn more, visit safy.org.